Hello everybody, this is Dr. Purdue with Rimway Educational Resources, and today we are doing a screencast on how to use the graphing calculator to enter lists, create a scatter plot, and find a function of best fit for some data. Now the data that I'm going to be using is from an activity that I've used often in class, which is exponential growth and decay using M&Ms. And so we are following along from an activity sheet in which part one, the growth activity, we started with 4 M&Ms in a cup, shook it up, and threw it into our plate and counted how many of the M&Ms had the M showing. For however many that was, we added it to the set and recorded it in our table and then went on and did the next trial. And we did this for 7 times. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter my data from the experiment into the list of my graphing calculator. I'm then going to create a scatter plot and see what that data looks like, and then try to figure out a function that best fits that data. Okay, so here we go. To enter your data into lists, you will click Stat, choose Edit out of the submenu, and number 1, Edit again. That will bring you to your first list, L1. Now generally L1 is going to be used for our independent variable, so in our case the independent variable is going to be the trial number. And so I did this 7 times, so I am just going to enter in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then I'm going to use the right arrow to move next door to list 2, where I'm going to enter in the corresponding Y data, the dependent variables, which in my case is going to be the number of M&Ms in that trial. So I just mentioned we all started with 4 M&Ms. Okay, and then from this point on, your data may be different than mine, because we each did our own experiment. So for me, I next had 7, and then 11, and 19, 29, 47, and in trial number 7 I had 67 M&Ms in the tray. Okay, so if you look at your whole list, you should be able to see that you have 7 entries, right, where these are going to be in coordinate pairs. So if we were going to graph this, there would be a point 1, 4, a point 2, 7, and etc. And in fact, that is what we're going to do next. We're going to graph this, and we're going to graph it as a scatter plot. Now, a scatter plot is a type of statistical plot, so that kind of gives you a clue about where we're going to go to enter this. So I'm going to clear my key press history so that if you're following this and taking notes on the steps, these are the steps to create a statistical plot. You'll go second, y equals, because if you notice above the y equals button in blue, it has stat plot. So second stat plot. We're just going to choose number 1, plot number 1, and hit enter. And in this we have a series of 6 questions that we have to answer. First we need to turn the plot on. We have to select the type. We have to enter in the X and Y list, and we have to choose what kind of mark we want. And we do that for every one of up to 3 plots at a time. We're just going to do 1 plot though. Okay, so I'm going to turn it on. I am going to choose the very first plot type, which is the scatter plot. Okay, so if that's not already highlighted, you want to hit enter. And then I'm going to go down. My X list, the independent variable, is L1, and it already says that, so I don't have to change anything. I'm going to go down. My Y list is L2, and that's again where my dependent variable is, Again, it already says it, so I don't have to change it. And I'm going to choose the little plus sign as the mark. Okay, so those are the steps to turn the plot on and enter in the appropriate responses. Now, to graph it, we actually want to set an appropriate viewing window. Your window probably will not come up to really great numbers usually by default. Like for example, I go all the way to 20 on X where I only go to 7, right, on mine. So that might not be the best choice. Same thing with the Y. Now we can change these values manually, but I'm going to show you a quick way that you can have the calculator change those values for you. So to do that, you'll go to Zoom and scroll down. The preset option that we want is Zoom 9, which is Zoom Stat. That's for statistical plots, because remember, that's what we're doing. So if you press enter here, it will set a viewing window. So I'm going to click window so you can see what it looks like. That goes to a little more than 7 and a little more than 77, which is appropriate for the data that we have. Okay, and then you can click graph to see what the plot, the scatter plot, looks like. Now, the only thing about using stat plot is looking at the curve like this, you might mistakenly think that this looks more like a quadratic curve instead of an exponential curve. And so for that reason, I do encourage you to go back and change your viewing window to something that lets you see a little bit more of the axes so you can see the shape of the graph a little bit better. So for example, if I go to 20 on the X, or even better, let's make it square. I went to 77 on the Y, so let me go to 77 on the X. And you can see a little bit better that this graph is actually growing really, really quickly. Okay, so we don't need to go to 77, so I'll change it to something somewhere in the middle, let's say 25. And I'm going to change the Y to a little bit bigger. Let's go to 100. Okay, so you can see a little bit better. Now, so this is what our graph looks like. I'll bring it up in this window as well. Here's the graph, and you can see that this curve is looking very, very much like that exponential curve that we've studied in class. Now, next we want to ask the calculator to find the equation of the exponential function that best fits this data. So to do that, I'm going to clear my key press history so you can see the steps. Here's what you do. Go to Stat, go over to Calc on the submenu, and then scroll down. So we don't want a linear regression equation. We don't want a quadratic or a cubic or a quartic. We want an exponential regression. So that is number 0. So you can either scroll down and choose the 0 like I have here and click enter, or you can just press 0. Now the calculator is sitting here blinking at us, and it doesn't look like it, but it is asking you for 3 things. Those 3 things have to be in order, and they have to be separated by commas. Okay, the 3 things are: where is the X data located? Where is the Y data located? And where do you want the calculator to put the equation once it calculates it? Okay, so let's answer those in order. Where is our X data? Well, our X data is right here in list 1, L1. So I'm going to go second, L1. Remember what I said? It has to be separated by commas. Okay, the comma is right above the 7. And then the next question, where is the Y data located? Well, we see right here our Y data, our dependent variable, is located in L2. So second, L2, and again a comma. And then last, where do you want the calculator to store the equation? Now this last step, you could stop after L2, don't put a comma and just hit enter, and it will give you the equation. But I like putting in this third optional step because what it'll do is it'll store the equation for you and graph it, which to me saves like 3 extra steps. Otherwise you'd have to write it down and then type it back in and then hit graph, and just way too much trouble. So to tell it that you want to store this, and let's say we want to put it in Y1, the first slot in our Y equals location, you'll do this. Go to vars, V-A-R-S, which stands for variables, over to Y variables, and choose number 1, function. That will bring up our Y equals list, and I'm just going to store this in the first location, Y1. Okay, so I'm going to hit enter. So when you look on your home screen, it should look like this. You've got the exponential regression command, the location of your X data values, which is in L1, a comma, the location of your Y data values, which is in L2, a comma, and then where you want the calculator to put the equation, which is Y1. Once you've got all that, press enter, and it will do its magic and calculate the best equation to fit our data. And what do I mean by fit our data? I mean that we want this to go through as many of our points from our scatter plot as possible. And you'll see this is a really nice fitting curve that we found. So what you want to write down in your notes and on your activity sheets are the results that the calculator gives you. Now you'll notice it is crazy accurate. I don't expect you to be quite that accurate. So for us, usually 2 decimal points is sufficient. So you would write down A is approximately equal to 2.67, and B is approximately equal to 1.60. Okay, and if you hit graph, you can see that this particular equation goes through our points very, very well. Now I'm going to go back and do zoom 9 for zoom stat, so it spreads it out a little bit more so you can see, and show you one more cool feature, which is trace. So if you'll look right now, it tells me P1 up here at the top that I am in the scatter plot. So I am sitting right now on our first data point. Trial 1, we had 4 M&Ms. Trial 2, I had 7 M&Ms, and etc. So the left and right arrows will take me to each consecutive and previous point on the scatter plot. If I want to jump to the function, I can use either the up or down arrows, and now notice I'm in Y1. And one of the questions that it asks us is to predict what would happen if we went to 9 trials. So to do that, you want to make sure that your cursor is in the equation on Y1 instead of in the scatter plot. And right now, instead of x equals 4, I want x equals 9. I want to know, according to my function, how many M&Ms would I have if I would have done this 9 times? And the answer, if you have your window set, will come up. But most of the time you'll get something like this, which tells you that you need to go back to your window and allow for something that goes that far. So see what I mean? Our x stopped at 7. So we'll have to increase that. And we'll probably have to increase our y. Okay, go ahead and graph, trace, get on the equation, put x equals 9, and it will tell you that we would have approximately 188 M&Ms on that trial. All right, so those are some of the steps. We will do more. Thank you very much.